I had to look like 3 times at the credits. I'm just like, no way. Like, what? No way. So my first published photo was Cover Bike Photo Annual, 1998, from outside of Regina, you know? I don't know what the people at Bike Magazine were thinking, but there's no real bike scene there.
Hi, welcome to the Remotely Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Scotty Carlson. On today's episode, we have Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, photographer, and entrepreneur Derek Frankowski. He also plays left D on my men's hockey team. He's pretty good at that too. Derek has not only managed to carve out a creative career while living in a remote location, he's also built his career on photographing and filming in remote locations. In fact, he thinks it's part of his secret sauce. Derek brings us along on his journey from photographing mountain bikes in the gravel pits of Regina to filming lemurs for Planet Earth in Madagascar. I really enjoyed talking shop with Derek, and I hope you'll really enjoy it as well. Now, on with the show. So you're Derek Frankowski.
I sure am.
You sure are?
Yeah.
Live in Roslyn by way of Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, boy.
No-hander, flatlander.
Yep.
You made your way out this way 15, 20 years
20
ago?
years ago now, yeah. As far as like moving here, I moved here about 20 years. Yeah, 20 years ago this year, yeah.
And you work in film primarily. Started as a photographer,
Yep.
shooting mountain bicycles,
Correct.
which is surprising coming from Regina,
Yeah.
North End,
Yeah.
represent. So basically I just want to just start there, and we don't need to take a whole bunch of time going through everything, but just kind of,
Yeah.
You're in Regina,
Yeah.
you're riding bikes in gravel pits,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden the idea of shooting photos of that, where did
Where it all kind of
where did it start?
Yeah, there's some pretty good, and there's also some local ties there too, actually, that. But I was into photography, into mountain biking, ended up seeing Cranked 1. And I'd taken some pictures of biking, like nothing too aspirational. And then I saw Cranked 1 come out, and then it was like, we have gravel pits all around us. We could ride those bad boys, right? And they're only like 100 feet, 200 feet max long, with like maybe one like drop in the middle of it kind of thing. But it was enough to be like, oh, okay, we're free riding. We're doing what they're doing in the films. And early in that, I started bringing my camera out with us, and there's just basically a gravel pit, like just outside of Regina. Like it's not a natural, it's a man-made gravel pit. And I took a photo of my buddy Bob in this gravel pit, and just started kind of collecting enough images where I thought, okay, I have enough to send into Bike Magazine. I was like, well, might as well send it into the best magazine in the scene. Sent my photo into Bike, kept moving through life, ended up moving to Calgary to go to a photojournalism program at SAIT. I was like, okay, photography could be a thing. And actually, when I was in high school in grade 12, I kind of had this mindset of like, I'm going to be a bike photographer, which was kind of weird, obviously living in Regina. But for some reason, I just thought, if I go this direction, it's going to work out. I don't know if it was a self-confidence or something in my mind, but so I pursued that. I thought I might as well get some education behind it. So I went to SAIT. I was in SAIT. It's a 2-year program for photojournalism. And about halfway through, out of the blue, I went to the newsstand, saw the Bike Photo Annual, and I could just see the top half of the Bike Photo Annual in the newsstand. So I could just see like the sky and the text. I'm just like, huh. And I picked it up. I'm like, what the fuck? That's my photo? And I was like, what? Because they didn't say anything or tell me or anything. I had to look like 3 times at the credits. I'm just like, no way. Like, what? No way. So my first published photo was Cover Bike Photo Annual, 1998, from outside of Regina, you know, which, you know, obviously is, I don't know what the people at Bike Magazine were thinking, but there's no real bike scene there. And I made up some lie what the location was, because it was, like I said, it was like a gravel pit. So what are you going to say? And so that pretty much solidified, because I was going that direction anyways, where I want to be a bike photographer. But then once I got published, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is the best. Yeah. I thought I was just going to be getting covers every month, you know?
Yeah.
And It's funny because that like you get paid nothing. Like even now, I don't know what you get. I mean, there's not too many magazines left. That whole scene's completely turned on its head. But I remember back then it was only like for the cover, it might have been like 400 US, 500 US total for the cover. So you weren't making money off it, but I was able to like parlay that cover. And then I graduate from school. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be a bike photographer. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing. And so I was able to leverage that and just get my foot in the door with brands. I did a 2-month trip with some friends and was able to get a bunch of sponsorship and bikes and gear and gack and stuff so that we could just like look decent in the pictures. And we basically went on like a 2-month road trip with 2 buddies, childhood buddies. And the whole objective was just ride as many places and take pictures and, you know, live out of a van. We paid for camping the first night. And then after that, we just poached for 2 months straight.
So you finish school, you go on a road trip, you take a bunch of photos, you move back to Regina?
Yeah, well, actually, so I came back to Calgary for a bit. Actually, my mom got sick is kind of the main reason I moved back from Calgary to Regina. So I ended up moving back to Regina for a few years. And in my mind, I know some people say, like, if you're going to do a photography or, you know, you can... Some people's approach is just kind of, you know, keep your day job and then chip away and, you know, wait till that point happens where the photography business has enough of a foundation that you can kind of let go of your day job. But in my mind, when I was young, I was like, no, I'm just going to go this direction for a year or two. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And obviously living at home, keeping the overhead low was a good way for me to do it. So yeah, I was living in Regina, and that's about, just to give people reference, that's probably, you know, 18 to 20 hour drive to Vancouver-ish or so. So I would just commute, basically. I'd like call riders up, you know, and once, the thing is that bike cover like actually helped a huge amount because I don't remember how I got people's numbers, but basically I would just like get in touch with like a pro like Richie Slay or somebody and say, hey, my name's Derek Frankowski. I had the cover of the bike, blah, 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 blah. I'm just getting going. Would you want to go and take pictures? And most guys are really receptive. Like Tippy and all those guys would, yeah, they're like, sure, that sounds great. So I'd basically do like a road trip where I'd drive through, probably hit Kamloops, couch surf in Vancouver, shoot the North Shore, drive home, you know, get my photos, process, send them in, and then wait till my next trip to the mountains, basically, because I did a little bit of stuff locally, but obviously it wasn't the scene for me.
Yeah. It's a good point, though, you know, the opportunity and like taking a little bit and then how you can, you know, convert that into more opportunity. You know, you get the cover and, you know, I'm guilty of it where you kind of just expect the phone to keep ringing. Then it's like, I got the cover, man.
Yeah.
Where is everybody? But like, you know, the original kind of slide into the DM is probably looking through phone books, or, you know, one person who it's like, hey, do you have the phone number for the next person?
Yeah.
And, you know, really...
I have pretty good hustle on that end. Like I don't know where the innate hustle came from, but I was early, like as I was getting in my career, you know, email started to come into play, which is obviously very helpful for reaching out. Websites slowly materialized, but they weren't there at the start for sure. So I didn't have any way of like really getting in touch other than just, you know, I was pretty good at leveraging any traction I got. And after I got that one cover and stuff and I started submitting more, obviously I started to get more published and it got a little bit easier and then more, I could shoot with more riders, but everyone was pretty good and receptive, which was huge for me. Actually kind of weirdly, right out of school, I got a call from Fox and they wanted me to shoot, and it was like a pretty big company. So I've never done any commercial gig at all ever before. I didn't know how much to charge. I didn't know, this is like, you know, you have no internet to Google search unless you know somebody in the scene. You have no idea what the prices are out there. So I'm talking to her and she's like down in California and they wanted me to shoot for 2 days. I was like, okay. And then I had no idea what to charge. And actually I remember I learned this pretty early, but I just asked her, like, well, she asked me what I want to get paid. I'm like, I don't know, like, really. And she said to me, well, we pay our motocross guy $17.50 a day, US. And I'm just like, sounds pretty good. I'll do that. And so that's what I went with, $17.50 US a day. great money back then. Conversion rate makes me, to me, I thought I was rich, obviously. And that ended up being my day rate. I mean, I never dropped it lower than that the rest of my bike career, shooting photos, right? It was
Still
like, I guess that's what I know. And I would guess, I don't know what guys get paid now. I'm sure there is the guys that are doing it have been around for a long time, but probably that's probably not a normal day rate now.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, someone else like offered up the price, and I was like, yeah.
So nice versus getting into like the standoff between, you know, can you give us a quote? What's your budget? Well, give us a quote.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever put in a quote that was under what their budget is. Right. Every quote I put in is like, oh, we actually only have.
I know.
It's like, well,
super annoying.
Let's just avoid that dance.
Yeah, just what do you got?
But
let's go.
Everybody wants, I want more. They want to do it for less. But so when I met you, must have been 2003, 2004.
Yeah, 2004.
And I was just had a little studio, had some people working there, and you just rolled in. Not a type of studio where people normally roll in, you know, we're just a bunch of nerds working. And you came in, you're wearing like jeans that were a little bit too short. You had these big old running shoes on.
Pretty stylish nowadays, though,
totally,
right?
Yeah.
I'd be in style now
totally.
if I would have kept them.
Yeah. Dad runners for sure. And you're like, oh, my name is Derek Frankowski. I'm a photographer, mountain bikes. I need to make a website. I was wondering if you guys could help. And then you kind of took a minute. You looked down. You're like, huh. Kind of look like Jerry Seinfeld right now. I was like, who is this guy?
Furry boy. Really? Where were you guys? Where was that?
We're above Kingdom at that time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was sweet. And then I think it was literally the next week or even, like that weekend, I went down to Las Vegas for the premiere of the Free Ride New World Disorder movie that we had worked on.
Part 1?
It's like maybe part 3, I think.
Yeah.
And it's at Interbike, which is a big mountain bike and bicycle convention in Las Vegas. And I'm walking through Interbike, checking stuff out. And then there was I think it was Bike maybe, again, had their booth and their cover. And it was this cool photo. It was like all kind of like motion blur. Purple. Yeah. And it was super
I like that
T-class. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's a cool cover. And I look in and it says right there is like a photo by Derek Frankowski. I was like, I just met that guy.
That guy was in my office.
Short jeans, big shoes.
Yeah, good guy.
I was like, oh, it's weird. He just moved to Roslyn. Yeah. And from there, we built you a sweet website back then.
Yeah.
Then we've worked together intermittently on a bunch of stuff over the years. Yeah. But you're doing mountain bike photos. Okay, I'll catch you up to kind of the next pivotal moment, at least from my perspective, is Derek's taking a lot of photos, a lot of sweet photos in the mountain bike industry, and lots of companies that hire people to come out and do video shoots, also hire a photographer. People that are making films also have a photographer come out and shoot while they're making the film. And Derek's there shooting photos, and he notices that a lot of the filmers at the time would kind of pack up early, wouldn't arrive to shoot until late. And he's like, you're missing all the best light.
That's you, Axel. That's you.
And he's like starting to see things in the forest as he's kind of sitting there waiting for photos, and he's noticing things that other people aren't noticing or aren't paying attention to or filming at that time. And he starts brewing the idea for a switch into cinematography and making a movie about mountain biking. And we'll get into it a little bit after. Remind me if I forget. But Derek's dad also, when he was little, would bring him down really close to nature, whether it's a bug in the grass or a cool plant or something, and really kind of build this appreciation for the micro in nature. So Derek's kind of coming up with these ideas. He's also has met another filmmaker named Ryan Gibb, who's a bit of a...
He's a legend.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend.
He is a beauty. And together they form a production company, and they go out to make a movie which becomes Life Cycles. But I won't tell you anymore. So that's, we're kind of there. You're wanting to make this movie. It's not the easiest process in the world to find financing. And if you just want to kind of bring us into that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I did. Yeah, I was getting brought along on some film shoots. Obviously, like I said, they have stills photographers, so I filled that role sometimes. And I was in Kamloops, and I don't remember the exact circumstances, but Gibb was there making Suspect. He was going to school, film school. in the States there. And so he was in Kamloops making his film Suspect. And I met him. Obviously, he's a character. He's a great guy to be around, lovable human. Basically, we decided like we should do a film together, you know. And then I could bring some of that more photography discipline into the motion world. And then he obviously knows the motion. He was really big in the slow motion thing already. Like he had a camera that shot like 400 frames a second in 16 mil film. Like he had shot Chemical and stuff, a couple other pro riders, and I saw the stuff, and we still have that trailer actually.
Like cool stuff with the shadows, like following the shadow up first and stuff.
And no one had ever seen anything like that because he was taking a camera that was like, I don't know what they used it for, like crash test or something. So you know, so he showed me some of that stuff, and I was like, wow, this is pretty killer. So we ended up, he came to Roslyn with the footage, and we were up in the apartments up top of town, and we cut the first trailer to try to go get funding for Life Cycles. And then I didn't realize at the time how, like many people and many things, if you knew when you're starting what it was going to take to pull off, you might not do it. But it was, it turned into, I would say, from the time we sat and made that first trailer till the time we were sitting in Vegas premiering the film, it was a solid 5 years. We had to be pretty resourceful. We didn't have money. We literally didn't have, like, once we bought the cameras and everything like that, like, we were tapped basically. Like, we were just struggling. Yeah, we remortgaged houses and all kinds of stuff just to get enough money. It was 2007, 2008. So we had this pretty cool pitch trailer. We thought, you know, okay, this is different for sure. We knew what was out there, what's been done. We thought we'd get money for sure. Recession happens, we're asking for money, and it was like no one, like crickets, right? We got no extra money. Even the big companies like the Red Bulls and the, you know, they just, there was no one handing out cash. So seemed like a negative at the time, like so many things. You're like, oh man, this sucks. Maybe not. But I think the interesting thing for us, what ended up happening, was that no one else was making bike film while we were, because there was no money around. And they're so used to those 1 year cycles. Most films are built in a year, right? So just if people don't know, most films that we're competing against are like the people have seen to that date were basically 1 year production cycles from concept to delivery. So to be 5 years was just like unheard of. But I think it gave us a lot of time and advantage, and we spent a lot more time preparing for the different shoots we were going to do. Also, we had the ability to go back and do interesting stuff where we'd go back over multiple years to a same location, and you know, it worked out pretty good. And yeah, it was pretty well received, and it's still, you know, it cracked open a lot of doors for both Gib and I, really. Out
of Life Cycles, which obviously was, like you said, 5 years in the making.
5 years.
Very draining, taxing,
super draining.
Remortgaged houses.
Yeah.
And, you know, luckily it was really well received, and you didn't lose your house, no. Which is good news.
Thankfully, I live in a small town where that house isn't worth too much at the time, so that helps.
Yeah, wife didn't leave you.
No.
All positives.
She was crucial. And
then from there, you obviously things like Planet Earth had been super inspirational to you, by BBC, which was this global phenomenon. You know, a natural history documentary that looked completely different than all the ones that had come before it. And by happen chance, someone you knew who happened to be living in our small town was grown up and best friends with a producer on that series. You said, hey, maybe if you get a chance, you could hand him this copy of Life Cycles.
Exactly.
He was like, sure. You know, he's a good, trustworthy English boy.
Yep.
And he hands it to him. That guy gets it. He puts it on a stack of other DVDs that sits there for God knows how long. At some point, and he's thinking, you know, my buddy Rob, who I knew growing up, and he's gone off to Canada, and he's living in this small town, and some action sports filmmaker he knows made a movie, and in his mind, he's picturing kind of what a lot of us new action sports movies to look like. Finally, he puts it in, and his mind changes about what
I can't speak for him. I mean, I don't know what his, I can't recall what his actual reaction to the film was, but what had happened was he was working for the BBC, Tom, and he was a producer, and then Planet Earth 2 was coming. and he ended up getting the role of like basically the head producer. So he's overseeing the entire production. So he has producers on each episode, but he is kind of the head honcho. And I think kind of similar to, I would say, if I've done something decent that's worth passing along to people, is like, I feel like if there's a direction, once I know the direction I want to go in, if I get a little bit of traction in that direction, I'm pretty good at wiggling, like just staying on it and getting in there. And I knew, like, I remember thinking like, hey, I'm never going to get, I wanted to go into wildlife films kind of since I was little. Like I always liked them. I kind of thought I'd do it later in life, but when I realized the opportunity in front of me, I'm like, okay, so like I have a direct pipeline to top producer for the BBC. It's kind of hard to crack BBC as a Canadian. Like they often will, utilize British cinematographers, which makes a lot of sense. Because these guys and gals, they grow up in the scene there, so they kind of work their way up to the role. So once I kind of was like, well, this is my opportunity, I think, to get a foothold in here, I kept bugging him basically, and then I remember he had an opportunity for me to go do something, but I couldn't do it, and I was really bummed out. Something down in like Arizona, and then the next time he called me, asked me to go to Madagascar, and I was like, yes, Madagascar with BBC, I will do that. Film lemurs, like it was pretty much a dream come true. So yeah, that my first gig in the wildlife world was BBC Planet Earth 2. I ended up on traveling across the world with a bunch of camera gear. I met up with the crew and him. Tom was on the shoot and went from London to Madagascar, and then I did 2 weeks shoot for them, and then that kind of kickstarted me in that world. The same kind of thing as the cover. Like once I had that credibility, all of a sudden I'm in the club. And
does that happen to be the one where an Emmy nomination and an Emmy award was granted?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So the first photo he takes of mountain biking, cover of the best bike mag, first wildlife film he's on, they win an Emmy for the segment that they produce. Pretty solid.
Yeah. And it doesn't even, like, honestly, like, I've never cared about that, because like Life Cycle's won a ton of awards too. I don't really care about those things, but I think what they're useful for is it kind of just gives you credentials in front of other people that don't know you, right? Totally. If all of a sudden they just come across you on paper and it's like who is this guy? And they see that, they're like, okay, so he must know what he's doing.
So you've made the Madagascar.
Yeah, went to Madagascar.
And then from there, it seemed like you had all these really cool wildlife projects that kind of stacked up. It was like this, all of a sudden there's this explosion, all these streamers, Netflix wanted their own and Apple wanted their own, and everybody was wanting to produce these. And it's this weird world where there's not that many production companies that actually produce wildlife films, and they all happen to be in Bristol, in England. And it's kind of this offshoot of BBC where all these people left that.
They even have a school for wildlife filmmaking there.
Right.
I think you can get a degree in it in Bristol.
And you happen to be, entered at this great time, and then you went on this run of
bit of a tear. But that's honestly that my success, can really be because it's that 80-20 rule, man. Like most of my success in the wildlife world, the reason I was getting fed work was because of Tom, because he went over to Plimsoll. Plimsoll started getting all these contracts for Apple, Netflix, So I just started getting brought onto all these different productions, and then usually I was getting brought into these productions for a certain, I guess my style was to set the tone or the, what's the word they would use? Like the essence of a place, I guess you could say. Like I was in there to shoot scenes that would give you a sense of place. So that's kind of what getting used for. And also just my ability to move the camera in a way that was interesting. Yeah,
it was definitely, you had your own, from I think years as a photographer, appreciation for,
composition,
light,
and things like that just stayed with me for sure.
And I think that's, a really good point. And I'll say it again because I've said it before, but luck is such an important thing. Like you obviously had all the talent to be able to do it, and you proved it by being part of a team that won an Emmy for doing it in the wildlife space. You proved it on Life Cycles, and everything it went on to do. But like on your own, trying to break into the BBC, like you said, would be really hard to be able to do that, to be able to go, I'm this guy over here, I've done this thing.
Oh yeah.
And so even someone with immense talent and a track record to break in isn't easy. And so I think luck, coming down to that, like preparation meets opportunity. Mm-hmm. If you hadn't made Life Cycles and you knew Rob, who knew Tom, who worked at the BBC, it wouldn't matter. You could say, oh, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
You'd have nothing to show them. So this like ability to go and manifest something, create something that you want to do, and then, you know, find those ways, like you kept pushing to be able to kind of get this in front of someone. And then, yeah, it seems lucky after, but I think that's so many of my opportunities come from not like the world seeing me and calling me. It's from something I did and someone knew somebody and they passed it along, or they connected me and I would pass it along, and then opportunities would happen. And, you know, that was when I got to work for the Canucks, which we got to do together, which is super cool.
Super cool.
Childhood dream.
Hockey, couple good boys, couple hockey boys.
Yeah.
Best.
Yeah, hometown team.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had made, and you'd helped on as well, a super personal story about a ice flooding tractor in our local arena, which, you know, went on to do quite well on the socials and on the internets. And that got put in front of the creative director at the Canucks, who was a friend of a friend, and their opportunities come.
Yeah, same.
And I think that's something, I think, for lots of people to realize that, you know, lots of opportunities might actually come from someone you know, who knows someone you know, who knows someone that you don't know. And just having stuff prepared, like pursuing things that might seem silly at the time or not have an outlet. You know, like when I made the tractor thing, which is actually getting retired this year.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Or actually,
so we were just ahead of our time a little bit. It had no outlet. There was nobody was asking for it. There was no big, let's do this and it will become this. It was just this fun thing. And we did it. And then I put it on a shelf it was getting close to Christmas. I finished it, liked it. And then it just sat there. And then sometime like a month or 6 weeks later, I was like, oh, I should post this online.
Yeah.
And it went from 0 to a whole bunch really quick. And then again on that, it did really well on its own. But then I had a friend or someone I knew who worked at a marketing agency, and one of their clients that they were kind of hoping to work with was Ford. And he had some connections there. They weren't working with them yet, but they really wanted to work with Ford. And so he said, hey, do you mind if I pass this along? Because it's a Ford tractor. And I think they'd really dig it. Plus it would make me look cool. Like, hey, I got this thing, you know, that you guys might like. And he passed it along to them. Ford got in contact with me and they wanted to put their PR specialists and team behind it. And then it went from a whole bunch to a whole bunch more.
Did you get a bunch of money? What's going on?
No. But all of a sudden, once that PR team got involved, radio started calling, CBC started calling. It was featured in all these places. And I realized that there's, again, so many layers that when you're just making stuff on your own and it might not be working, you might do something great. And it's just like, why isn't more people seeing it? This thing over here that is cool, but I think the thing I did is just as cool. It blew up and mine didn't. I think that there's so many factors at play behind the scenes on all these things. Sometimes it might just hit at the right time and it organically does it and it's great. Other times things happen, friends step in, people want to use it for their advantage, whatever it might be. But I think for people that aren't achieving success on things right away, just know that there's other things that can happen and other plays that can happen. And you're just preparing for the opportunity that will come. And then it seems lucky.
Yeah. I mean, this thing that some of the parallels is like on those two projects, and I mean, Life Cycles for me was a huge proof of concept in my life. I mean, it changed how I look at what I'm doing, but is that if you do something in your own voice and your own style and people can feel that, that's what they get attracted to and that's what they resonate with, you know? So you do something like the tractor, well, you're not doing it for a brand or any particular reason. You're just letting it flow naturally out of you, and then people see it. I think that's why stuff like that works. And, you know, since we're talking remotely creative, like I think the advantage is that we live in a place, although life's getting more and more expensive for everybody, we live in a place that we're not super high overhead, which is pretty important for allowing you to be maybe a little bit choosier. I've been decently choosy at what I take on, but I wouldn't be able, I mean, obviously having a wife that, you know, has a real job and a nurse and the benefits and all that stuff really helps to pay the bills, but I'm you know, we live in a place where we can keep our overhead manageable, I guess would be the right way to say it, and that we can put out things that we want to put out in our own flavor, and that probably helps. And now, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, right? It does.
Yeah. And I think that's like super true for you. I think you've never really, money hasn't been the pursuit for you. A lot of the stuff you've done, I remember you saying, I like to do these quick things back in the day, you know, like I have a day or I have a couple days not booked. I'm just going to try and make something quick. And you were like, if you can't do it the best that you can do it, why are you going to do it?
I said that.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, I don't know, because it's fun to do, but like, and then that got in my head for a long time where I was like, if I'm going to do something, I might as well, if I'm willing to do it, I might as well be willing to do it the best I can. And if I don't have time to do it the best I can, then I should probably just wait and figure out a time when I can. And but the other part of me is I really like money. You know, a lot of stuff I do is like, I'm trying to make money. I'd like to make more money. Yeah. But you've always had this artistic approach to, or at least self-expression of really wanted to pursue projects and do things that feed your soul. And you've said no to a lot. And, you know, I've had projects where I'd like you to work on them and you've said no. And I think it's super cool. And I think that leads into, you know, the next thing, because you did wildlife for a long time and you still do it. But in the last few years, you've been pursuing another self-propelled project called Transport Gallery, which is almost like really merging your photography.
Yeah. Cinematographer.
Your photography past and your current cinematography into, this beautiful, super slow, contemporary. What was the phrase you used recently?
Fine art cinematography.
Fine art cinematography, with the hope that you can build this gallery and get this work into homes, galleries, places all around the world. Anybody that'll take it. But with a real intention behind it, that is like the effort and energy that you're putting into the project. Each of the pieces is tremendous. And I think a lot of people that work in this field, the idea of putting that much effort into a single piece, let alone how many you guys have done, would be just like, they probably just don't have the time, or they're not willing to say no to the projects to make the time. Yeah. So if you want to just kind of bring us into why you wanted to do that, where that sits now, and then where you hope it's going to go kind of in the next, hopefully short term.
I can tell you, I remember actually I was in Vancouver for Canuck stuff, and I went to the art gallery. This was, I don't know how many years ago, quite a few years ago now. But I remember going to the art gallery, and I know exactly where I was walking. There's a few things in my life that I've done where I've just like, I can remember exactly where I was sitting. Like, I remember the moment I thought in high school I was going to be a bike photographer. I remember the classroom I was in and everything just kind of hit my mind. And I went to the art gallery in Vancouver, and I was like walking down the street after, and I just thought to myself, could I do something in cinematography, the moving image, that could live on the walls of an art gallery? I started with that basic kind of question to myself. And then, some people would say, I guess, I overthink. Like I spend a lot of time in my head thinking about things, but I spent a long time thinking about it, and then started to try some things out. So I started playing around with what that could look like potentially, because I didn't really think there was any opportunity. Like I'd never really seen. I've seen some video art that it was like more like someone that went to art school that was a bit more like less, I guess something for me that I couldn't really understand what they're trying to say to me. I mean, it wasn't like a good high quality camera. They didn't really understand cinematography. They were using the video camera as a tool to make art. But for me, for me, it would have to be beautiful and have to something that would resonate with me. So I was like, could I do something? So that's kind of started with the question, which was interesting. The word fine art cinematography is the word that we're comfortable with now because we feel like it encapsulates, like, we're not, when I hear the word video artist, I think of what I remember seeing. When I hear cinematography, I imagine the tools that are used in cinematography being utilized. And there's fine art photography, and when someone says a fine art photography, people instantly understand what that means. And that's basically what we're trying to emulate, is being fine art photographers, but with moving pictures, at the end of the day. So we're trying to figure out our own canvas. So we're trying to figure out our own delivery method. So we have full control over the color and how the final product looks, just like a print would look. You want full control. But we're also looking at really interesting ways of distributing it digitally, because it's pretty exciting with what you can do and how easy it is to do it now. And we're just starting to get a bit of traction. Like I mentioned to you, we have the IdeaWorks in the UK that is starting to show our stuff on this cool Ventana screen. So it's we're just starting to get traction. And it's fun, right? Because you're going back again. One thing, weirdly, I don't know why, but I make these shifts in my life where it's like I'm working in the bike industry, spend all that 10 years building up a clientele, connections. We make life cycles. The smart thing to do would have been to parlay that into Life Cycles 2 or another film project in mountain biking and stuff. But in my mind, for some reason, I'm just like, I'm kind of done. I've done what I can do in that world. I don't really have much more to say. I'm going to go after a new challenge. And then Wildlife presented itself. And it's like, okay, here's my new challenge. Same thing with the stuff with the Canucks. That was a fun new challenge. So I guess what I'm saying is that this feels like going back to, like, okay, we got to build this up from scratch. It's all new, but it's also really exciting because we're only showing right now a sliver of what's in our mind of what we can do, because right now we're limited because we're obviously funding it ourselves. We haven't had any support or anything. So we're basically just like, but what I've learned from Life Cycles is that if you do something in your own voice and you keep persisting, eventually people see that. And that's who you start getting calls from, is because they see a certain fingerprint to the work that they really like. So we're super excited about it. I think it's just something new. And like I said, it's taking photography, it's taking cinematography, it's kind of putting them into one medium. It offers people something I don't think they've ever had the opportunity to. I think there's a good upside for, and we've let the work out of the bag a little bit, where we've worked with a girl that's getting her master's in Vienna, and she was doing something on appreciating the everyday make your life better and feel like, can you be a happier person? So she took some of our footage and she's been using it in some studies. So really, really interested in, like, seeing how it can be used to help people, and I don't know, change it up for us too. Like I said, I think 2025 is gonna be a big step for us, because I feel like we've taken to a certain point where you can see it, you can taste it, you can touch it. And so when I call somebody or connect with somebody, they can understand it now, whereas before it was like more obscure and I couldn't really explain it. But now we have that physical piece to say, no, this is what it is. This is what it's like. But we can do so much more with it that, it really is. But,
well, thanks for coming in.
Right on.
Won't keep you any longer. I think I burnt my hour, but just going to shake it.
Magic of editing.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, right on. Oh, yes, it's pretty official.
Oh, yeah, we keep it classy. And we'll have you back as transport continues.
I'll about to come back and tell you about all the exciting stuff. It's getting pretty exciting. I'm getting pretty excited. Yeah. It's been a long time, but I can see it now. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It is super cool. And good luck with that. Obviously, I'll help you as much as you need help with as it goes.
I lean on for that. For sure.
And we'll have you back as that continues. Until next time. Thank you so much to Derek for coming on the show. Every time we chat, he reminds me of how important it is to bet on yourself, to bet on myself. It's amazing being able to make a living being creative, for sure. But like any job, it can become just that. On the other hand, the excitement that comes from creating something from nothing that nobody's asking for, but for some reason you can't stop thinking about, is truly an amazing feeling. One that gives me the goosebumps and the giggles. And it's a feeling I love chasing, no matter how silly it might seem at the time or how many people tell me I'm being silly. So my advice to you and to myself is be weird, be silly, do the thing, and at least once in a while be willing to bet on yourself. You never know where it might take you, truly. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, and remember, no matter what, we're all at least remotely creative. Bye.